Poland seized by Germans, autumn 1941. Under the codename Operation Reinhard, Nazi Germany executes a deliberate scheme to methodically kill 2 million Jews housed under the so-called general government. Ultimately, as part of 3 extermination camps opened to serve the goals of the operation, Bełżec, Sobibor, and Treblinka, about 1.5 million Jews would be exterminated. This deed marks the worst phase of Nazi Germany's scheme to implement genocide against the Jewish population. Known as Ivan the Terrible for his savagery, one of the most infamous members of this clandestine German operation would go down in history, having tortured men, women, children, and newborns before placing them in the gas chamber at the Treblinka death camp. Marchenko, Ivan, is his name. Born in the Ukrainian village of Serhijowga, then under Russian Empire, Ivan Marchenko was born on March 2, 1911. Married before the Second World War started, Marchenko had 3 children. To support his family, he worked as a local miner. The Second World War began with Nazi Germany's September 1, 1939 invasion of Poland. Maintaining their border guarantee for Poland, Britain and France announced war on Germany 2 days later. But the Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east on September 17, therefore creating a two-front battle. That same day, the Polish government departed the nation. On September 28, 1939, Warsaw formally turned into the Germans after heavy bombardment and artillery. On September 29, in line with their non-aggression agreement's clandestine protocol, Germany and the Soviet Union split Poland. Polish soldiers as last resistance stopped on October 6. Less than 2 years later, on June 22, 1941, Nazi Germany under the cover name Operation Barbarossa invasions the Soviet Union, its ally in the battle against Poland. Launched along a broad front spanning the Black Sea in the south to the Baltic Sea in the north, almost 3 million German soldiers from 3 army groups attacked the Soviet Union. The army received reinforcement from additional 650,000 German allies. Following the German attack, the Soviet Union suffered terrible military losses in the first 6 weeks. During World War II, the German forces finally took approximately 5.7 million Soviet Red Army men prisoner. Ivan Marchenko was one of them. He joined the Red Army Infantry on May 27, 1941, and was captured by the Germans on July 10 of the same year. Over 3.3 million Soviet POWs, or practically 57% of all those taken prisoner, had died by the end of the war. Second only to Jews, Soviet prisoners of war comprised the biggest group of victims of Nazi racial policy. Marchenko was saved, too. Instead, he was sent to the POW camp in Chelm, Poland, and in October 1941 he was selected to serve at the Treblinka camp, where Nazis trained POWs to be SS guards. SS and police authorities inducted, processed, and trained 2,500 auxiliary police guards called Treblinka troops in the Treblinka training camp between September 1941 and September 1942. About half of them had been Soviet Union POWs. The Treblinka trained guards' primary duty was their participation in the Final Solution operations, which comprised of mass murder of Europe's Jews. Treblinka men supplied the security personnel for the Bełżec, Sobibor, and Treblinka murder sites of Operation Reinhard. From both large and small ghettos in German-occupied Poland, the German SS and police authorities deployed the Treblinka men as bodyguards for the transportation trains from ghettos to the killing centers and in the deportation operations. Among other ghettos, Treblinka trained guards were assigned to Warsaw, Lublin, and Krakow. In February 1942, Ivan Marchenko started photographing Jews in Lublin for the execution camps. Marchenko was sent to the summer of 1942 built extermination camp at Treblinka in May of that year. Set up after Bełżec and Sobibor, it was the third execution center established by Operation Reinhard officials. Radom areas of the general government and Warsaw ghettos were the main sources of deportations to Treblinka up to the spring of 1943. The most famous of the deportations were the 7,000 or so Jews sent from the Warsaw Ghetto when it was evacuated during the 1943 Ghetto Uprising. Holocaust survivor Joseph Charny, whose parents died in the Warsaw Ghetto, remembered of how he was transferred to Treblinka at the age of 16 and spent 10 months there, when the Ukrainian Traniki guards came to lock the door. They used a board to push in the mass of flesh. We were crushed, packed together, and utterly connected as one. I remember some people acting absolutely crazy. Charny continued, they were actually drinking pee and sobbed while they did so. He continued, I remember 2 of my 3 sisters, Hannah and Gita, yelling, Daddy, Daddy, but I couldn't find them. Joseph made it out of Treblinka, but his 3 sisters were dead there only upon arrival. At Treblinka, the murder techniques and choices were meticulously considered and planned. The first stop for arriving trains loaded perhaps with 50 or 60 cars headed toward the killing center was the Malkinia railway station. One by one, the 20 cars of the train were hauled off and into the killing center. At 5:36, the guards told the victims to get off in the receiving area, that which comprised the platform and railway siding. Built on the platform, the structure looked like a train station with a wooden clock, fake ticket office, schedules, destination signs, and plans. German SS and police officials told the deportees they had to turn over everything when they arrived at a transit camp. Men were kept apart from women and children in a fenced-in deportation square, with 2 barracks in the receiving area as undressers for deportees. It featured roomy stores as well. The victims' possessions were arranged and kept here before being flown to Germany via Lublin. From the reception area to the killing section's gas chamber, there was a fenced-in, camouflaged path. One called this the tube. Victims were driven along this path to run naked to the gas chambers, which were misled as showers. Once the chamber doors were closed, a large diesel engine outside the building sent carbon monoxide exhaust fumes within. One Holocaust survivor remembered that as there was not a single inch of open space, everyone was either spread out dead or, more accurately, standing up dead after a maximum of 25 minutes. The dead just laid against each other. During this period, the Germans would savagely fight alongside the Traniki guards, killing those selected for death. Apart from the drivers and their dogs, 5 or 6 Germans were present in every gas chamber. Drivers controlled the Traniki guards running the gas chambers. They whipped and used clubs to push the people into the gas chamber corridor. Treblinka survivor Yehiel Reichman said following the war, guards would seal victims inside gas chambers to suffocate when they didn't expect a new shipment of prisoners to arrive for several days. The victims would die quietly on their own. When the chambers were opened 48 hours later, all the remains were black. Everything was just one solid mass. I shiver at the thought of a 2-legged beast capable of such deeds. The Nazis finally lowered their initial claim that they could process a train of around 3,000 people in 3 hours to about 30 minutes as they honed and mastered the horrors of mass extermination. Those too sick or weak to travel to the gas chambers alone were promised medical assistance. Members of the Sonderkommando carried groups of Jews who were forced to work in the cremation to a site covered with a Red Cross banner, so mimicking a small clinic. SS Corporal Willy Menster shot the victims in an open pit. Marchenko was known as Ivan Grozny, or in Polish is Ivan the Terrible, because of his cruelty in Treblinka. As he loaded the gas chambers, he cried, "Faster, faster, the water will get cold, others still have to go under the showers," lashing those sentenced to death. Glancing through a glass to track the asphyxiation process's development while the engine was running, he would grin. Marchenko was a virtuoso in killing people with the water pipe. After the war, an old colleague testified stating Marchenko killed a physically strong man with one pipe stroke. Ivan Marchenko was another offender sexually inclined. He would stab women in the thighs and genitalia with his sword on his path to the gas chambers. He occasionally would even rape them. With his sword, he routinely hacked off women's breasts, nose, and ears. Next he would nail the ears to the walls. He also developed a propensity of gassing out victim eyes. Ivan the Terrible kept a dog in Treblinka that would, under instructions, rip off bits of human flesh. Marchenko would call to this dog, which was taught to bite off genitalia, point at someone, and Ivan took special pleasure in slashing pregnant women with a sword and in splitting open heads with an iron pipe, said Pinchas Epstein, another Treblinka victim. The dog would then pull off the sexual organ, causing blood to spill everywhere. He was voracious. About 12 or 14, a small child emerged from the gas chamber alive and sobbed, "I want my mother." Ivan went over to one of the Jewish workers and gave him the order to rape her. The worker and the child were driven to a graveyard and shot when he refused. Another time Marchenko was seen grabbing a baby from a naked mother and shattering its skull against the wall before she entered a gas chamber. At the beginning of 1943, Jewish inmates started a resistance group. When camp activities came to a close, the prisoners worried about being killed and about the demolition of their camp. The leaders of the resistance decided to rebel late in spring and summer 1943, and on August 2, 1943, detainees covertly pilfers weapons from the camp arsenal. But once they were discovered before they could take over the camp, hundreds of prisoners sought to flee by attacking the main gate. While machine gun fire claimed many lives, over 300 managed to escape. Nevertheless, two-thirds of them were later discovered and killed by German armed forces, SS, and police. The last prisoners had to destroy the camp. Once their task was finished, the prisoners were shot by German SS and police officials under their direction following Odilo Globoknik's orders. By the time the Treblinka execution complex was destroyed in the fall of 1943, camp officials had reportedly killed an estimated 925,000 Jews, together with an unknown number of Poles, Roma, and Soviet prisoners of war. Every clue that the camp had ever existed was removed. An ethnic German farmer was placed on the premises and lupin flowers were planted to cover the facts of what had happened here. Marchenko returned to the Treblinka camp in August 1943, then proceeded to Trieste, Italy, where he patrolled the Trieste prison, secured German supplies at the port, and helped to capture Italian citizens for forced labor in Germany. Marchenko joined Yugoslav partisans to escape oncoming Allied soldiers following last sight from a brothel in the Adriatic city of Fiume in March 1945. Ultimately, he was never heard from again and never got justice for his acts. Retired suburban auto worker of Ukrainian ancestry from Cleveland, John Demyanyuk was suspected of being Ivan the Terrible during the 1970s and 1980s. He was prosecuted in Israel in 1988 and sentenced to death, but the decision was overturned upon Soviet records showing Ivan Marchenko was indeed Ivan the Terrible. Demyanyuk was hence cleared by the Supreme Court of Israel in 1993 on grounds of reasonable doubt. For Ivan Marchenko, not one tear dropped. I appreciate you viewing. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell notification symbol to guarantee you never miss our next episodes. We value it and perhaps see you on the channel once more not too far off.